the heading for this is Community Collaboration to Improve Access to Justice. What can we learn and what's holding others back? That's quite a catchy title. And I think what that is can we be a decent society, and what do we do in the context of all this anti-wokery nonsense and cruel stuff that we're having to deal with. We would like this session to have levels of interactivity, particularly using Slido, and we will be coming to a couple of polls and questions that we'll ask you to answer. But the main thing for me is that what we would like you to do at the end of this session is to type into Slido what you're going to do to help DE&I mental health in the legal sector particularly. There's a lot of chat and not so much doing sometimes, and I think we've heard today from a number of people it's not about something up here, it's about everybody doing something. So I'm very much hoping you will be part of that space. So this is about the systemic barriers that prevent a fair, diverse, healthy and inclusive profession in law. By the way, I retired on the 31st of January. I'm quite pleased, actually. Quite pleased not to be in a big corporate at the moment. And we do want to get a little bit beyond the data. And the focus of the discussion will be how we lead action for sustainable results and sort of drive accountability and, I think, cooperation in the sector. And what we really want to do is make sure that we hear from you both online and at home as we go to. And my bits, in the DE&I space is social mobility, entry into the profession, queer people. That's sort of, and anybody being bullied. Can't stand that. So that's my sort of thing. And we really want to know how we can achieve this ambition with courage, confidence, and success, given the pressures we face in the sector, and particularly, I think, in the context of current efforts to undermine the importance and efficacy of DE&I. Well, it doesn't feel very cool this year, does it? The DE&I stuff feels very under threat. So I'm going to go to the first question. If you could go to this QR code on Slido, I'm very much hoping that this is going to come up as a question, and it needs a typed response. So what for you are the greatest challenges in advancing equality, encouraging diversity, and promoting a healthy and inclusive culture in the legal profession right now? I think we're going to get some answers here. It's very exciting. Panellists, if you also want to go on Slido, that would be... But you didn't bring your phones. Great. Data, evaluation on what works, preconceived opinions. If anybody wants to type on my phone, but just be careful what you slide on, because there's all sorts on there. Well, you know, I have weekends, don't I? I have weekends. Recruitment processes, a lack of collaboration, what regulators can influence and control, intersectionality of socio-economic disadvantage, huge resistance and backlash from legal, fear of what's happening in the world, apathy, structural bias, lack of visible data. You'll only be able to see this if you've got your Slido open. Would you like to have my Slido? Because I'm very happy to give it to you. Apathy, immigration system itself, sponsor, imposter syndrome, lack of role models, conservatism, interest by those who don't feel DE&I impacts them, pressure of targets. But I feel that's enough now. Thank you. Wigs, I'm not sure what's going on there. It's not a wig. Labelling, costs of training, greater, better allocation of resources, billable hours, cumbersome bureaucracy, assumption that... Can you stop now? Please stop. Enough. So just some reactions from whoever might want to react on that in the panel. If you could say your name and your thing in the DE&I healthy living space. I'm going to go with Reena.
Yeah, okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Reena Parmar. I'm counsel at Freshfields and also chair of the Law Society's Disabled Solicitors Network. So I do a lot of advocacy in the disability and... Can't hear you.
Can we have the mic might not be on.
There we go. Is that any better?
Hold it for that.
Testing. Is that working? Yes. Okay. Sorry, Patrick. So, very quickly, Reena Parmar, counsel at Freshfields, chair of the Law Society's Disabled Solicitors Network. I'm a big advocate for disability and neurodivergency.
And so reactions to what
I mean... I would say, for me, the billable hours model is massive. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more, so I won't delve into it too much now. I think also getting in when you come from marginalised communities is really, really tough. I can see people nodding their heads. It's tough because
I love this. This is better. This is much better.
Do you want it?
No, go for it. Go for it. Now sing.
Well, I feel like I need that whole word map back up again. But there's a lot of people that just don't think about coming into the profession because they don't think it's a place for them. They don't see people that look like them, that sound like them. That's definitely true in the disability space, but also in terms of race and ethnicity and other factors. So it resonates.
Fab. I'm going to close that there because it's brilliant. We've got a second question for you. I love this question. And by the way, thank you so much for Gavin for corralling this. We look like a Crime Watch panel, don't we? It's just it's a little bit of a worry. Gavin, the next question we had, and again, if you could go, I think this will be a poll in Slido. How valued, supported, and this is a bit loaded, I'm just going to say that. How valued, supported and recognised do you feel for your work to drive equality, diversity, wellbeing and inclusion in the workplace and or in the wider legal selection? You've got three options, very, slightly or not at all. So it's quite exciting. We're half, slightly, not at all, very, someone's got a good job, that's great, not at all. So it looks like we're slightly valued and supported. So I'm going to close this in about 10 seconds. Otherwise, I'm going to be hypnotised by the numbers going up and down. So if we could close that now, the results are slightly valued and supported at 47%. That sounds like a sort of experience. Very, which sounds great, at 31%, and not at all in the 24%. I'd like to, Liz, I haven't told you I'm going to do this, but I'm going to come to you and then I'll go to Olive just for a response on what you're seeing there around value, support and recognition.
I think it's very telling, isn't it, that actually almost a quarter of people feel that they're not recognised or valued for the work that they're doing in this space, probably reflected by all the barriers that came up on what we saw on the first slide. I think it is encouraging that 30% do feel that they are valued. I think that's positive. It would be interesting if we'd done this 5 years ago, if we'd seen any difference. But I think it's a shame that we're not seeing that at 100%.
And Liz, could you just talk just a little bit about
the
work you do?
I forgot to say who I am. I'm Elizabeth Rimmer. I'm from LawCare. We're the mental health charity that support everybody working in the legal sector across the UK.
Great. And Olivia, if I could get a quick introduction for you and then just your reaction, particularly the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I'm Olive. I'm a solicitor at Rights of Women, which is a legal advice charity that provides advice across immigration, employment law, family law and criminal law. What was the question again?
The question is, what's your response to what's on there?
Yeah, I think Elizabeth has said it all. It's really upsetting that 24% feel that they're not at all valued. But I also wonder whether how much of that is reflective of the variation across the legal sector in terms of workplaces, work environments, and the difference in approach that you will find in a culture in different law firms. It's because it's possible to do it. 29% said very. It's possible for it to happen. You have to create the culture that enables it. And
unscripted, Sarah, can I just come to you for a response on this? Because you're local government, so if you could just say who you are and all that sort of stuff.
Hello, my name's Sarah Harriott and I work at Northamptonshire Counsel, contracts and procurement lawyer there, and I have a vested interest in this space, very similar to what Reena said. I've felt those barriers, and what I do is I post on LinkedIn. Anyone who wants to follow me is more than welcome. Just about my experiences, so hopefully I can get to share some of those today. It's really, I'm coming at this from a lawyers and local government's perspective. I sit on their board as well, and the will is very much there in local government. We've got the public sector equality duty, but it's as some of those comments said, it's the lack of commitment, the resources, and it's just really it's disheartening to see the results today, I think.
Thank you. It's really interesting. Actually, those results are higher than I thought. They're better than I thought they would be.
Okay,
I have to say, when I'm speaking to big law DE&I departments, they look battered, frankly, and they're trying to do the good work, but they do look battered. And I will come to you, Natasha. I'm now going to go back onto the script, so it's slightly less scary for us now because we're going to be following what was asked. So this is our first sort of panel discussion, question one. So, and this one will come to Liz and Olive and Reena. What are the greatest challenges that we face in delivering on our ambitions for a fair, diverse, healthy and inclusive profession? And if you want to go there, how do you think we can best navigate those challenges? So maybe if I start with Liz and then go to Olive and then Reena.
Okay, I think picking up on something Reena said around the billable hour model, I think there's something inherent in the way we work in law and what we value and how we measure success. We tend to value the time spent on doing tasks. The people that make it to the top are the ones who are really good at putting those hours in and getting those tasks done. I think that drives behavior where we don't recognize and value the other things that people do in the workplace when we're talking about work around diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I think that behavior also drives a sense of competition with others. We're not that collaborative, really, in the legal sector. We're looking out for ourselves often. Am I going to meet my target? Am I going to get that next promotion? So I think we discourage, in a way, by the way we work and what we value, we're actually discouraging those behaviors that would drive a more inclusive and diverse profession. And I think that's something that we really need to address in terms of what we actually reward in law. And I think another aspect of that is I think there's limited capacity and resource. We need to remember that the vast majority of law firms and workplaces across our nation are not the top 200 law firms where they may have people like Patrick who've been advocates and leading that work, or people like Reena. A lot of this work is falling on people on top of the day job. And so what happens is the day job takes priority because that's what you've got to be delivered. That's what gets measured in terms of what you deliver. So you're expected to do all of this on top of something else. So I think when there's a lot of other competing obligations for your time, I think that's a challenge. And we have that lack of capacity and that lack of expertise, if you want to say, that education or that understanding, actually knowing how to do any of this, I think is a limitation as well that we have in our sector.
Liz, thank you. Olive, if I could come to you.
Yeah, I thought I would go really big problem with this question. I think the greatest challenge with equity and diversity in the profession is that we have to recognise, and sometimes we have to just name, this structural and institutionalised discrimination that certain members of the profession experience. In fact, probably really the majority of the profession, when you add everybody up, experience. And when we talk about the profession, especially in the current political climate and how equity and diversity is facing a real political, let's say, moment. When we are talking about it, we have to name why we are doing it. There are members of our profession, so we don't other. When we talk about DEI, we're not othering people. We are members of the profession. There are members of the profession who experience that real structural and institutionalized discrimination for no other reason than because of the color of their skin, their gender, etc., etc. And we all have a responsibility to challenge ourselves to try and break down those barriers. So it's big challenge, but I think sometimes when we get into the nitty-gritty, we forget to name what the big challenge is. And in the current political climate, I think we do have to remember why we are talking about this in the first place.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn to you now, Reena.
Yeah. What Elizabeth and Olive said resonates so much with me. I guess my point is the burden of driving progress is often placed on the shoulders of those that are marginalised rather than it being seen as a systemic and organisational responsibility. Time and effort spent on DEI initiatives are not valued, rewarded in the way they should be, which kind of draws on Elizabeth's earlier comments about the billable hours model. But those that are marginalised are the ones that are having to perform at a high level but also push for grassroots change. And speaking from experience, that's tough. It takes a lot out of you. Those challenges are compounded by a lack of diversity in leadership. So those that are most affected by the status quo are not the ones that are at the boardroom table making decisions that affect their future, and that needs to change. So my point is that diversity advocates and champions, particularly those from marginalised communities, need to be recognised for the extra work that they do. They need to be given the resources, the tools, the support to succeed and thrive and perform. And that means sharing the load. And I think there is really a kind of a fundamental lack of understanding that a positive culture requires everybody to get involved. It requires everyone to be an active ally and to do their bit to drive cultural change. And so, unfortunately, those from marginalised communities end up in a cycle where they end up having to work really hard on the day job and show up. They also feel the burden of having to drive change. And that leads to burnout, and it's not sustainable.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add, just in terms of navigating a challenge, one of the things that I've been really pleased to see, I'm a people person, so I like working with lots of people. And one of my projects is 50 law firms who have come together, really competitive law firms, to recruit in solicitor apprentices. And we're now recruiting about 130, I think, to start in September. It's been really interesting to see that you can reach across and find the good people in other organisations. And that's just been lovely. And I've done that even in the queer space in terms of recruiting people in and then developing them. I've managed to get the 5 Magic Circle firms to work together. That's just unheard of. But it does happen, so and it can be fun. Let's go on to number 2. Natasha, you are now responsible for telling us all about how we can embed and drive effective long-term cultural and behavioural change in the profession. And are there any current incentives and accountability structures in the sector enough to achieve this? There's always a short question, isn't there? Achieve this change. Go for it, Natasha. Who wrote these questions?
What I'll do is I'll start off by introducing myself, because I haven't spoken on this panel. You saved the best and possibly the most controversial to last. I'm a barrister. I practice in from Garden Court Chambers. In terms of EDI space and work that I do, I'm an elected member of the Bar Council. I sit on its Equality, Diversity and Social Mobility Committee and its race panel. I am the founder and the chair of the Black Barristers Network. I sit on the Honourable Society of Lincoln's Inn's EDI committee. I think I also sit on Anglia Ruskin University's Legal Advisory Board. They're the university that gave me my honorary doctorate. And I probably missed something. But oh yes, because I'm a Bar Council member, I'm co-opted onto the FLBA as well, etc., etc. So many committees. So I absolutely agree a lot with what Reena was saying before about the burden being placed on the individuals that are experiencing the discrimination to try and tackle it. I sit here before you all today, having not had dinner last night because I got my brief and papers in late. Spending last night and today drafting and preparing for this conference. I've not had lunch either. Not a piece of food has gone through my lips. So that should give you an idea of how much work some of us are putting in to try and tackle these issues in the profession. Now, big question. How do you embed and drive effective long-term cultural and behavioural change? Thank you. I think the first thing we need to do is acknowledge the world that we live in. I have spoken, sitting right here at the King's Fund before, on a similar panel a few years ago, having the same conversation about equality and diversity and focusing very much on the tools and the things that we can do to support. I will come on to those in a moment. But since that time, I've got a bit older. I've got more jaded. I've seen life and how it works, and I have some things to say. We live in a racist, sexist, ableist, homophobic, and transphobic society. The first thing we need to do is acknowledge that. What we're doing in this space of EDI is we're trying to put little plasters on what is effectively an unfair, unjust, and broken world. And the reason why I'm taking it out to society is because, as a barrister, it is consumers, lay clients, who instruct us. They too live in said society, and they too have the similar stereotypes, positive and negative, in their minds when they're choosing who to instruct. On race, it's a social construct. It's in this hierarchy that's been placed to say that certain people, white people, are at the top, and black people at the bottom, and then the Asian people are somewhere in the middle, right? And then with that, you look back at the history of things like slavery, where black people were treated as cattle. We weren't seen as human beings. We were sold, traded, right? Those views and those thoughts are still, we still have those sorts of shockwaves in our society today. That's how we get these negative stereotypes of black people being lazy, not being smart, not being polished, not being professional, etc. And then there are certain other types of individuals who have the benefit of positive stereotypes, of being intellectual, being persuasive, charismatic, charming, white people. Those are some of the thoughts in the back of the minds of some of the people who are deciding whether or not to take us on as pupils, whether or not to take us on as tenants, whether or not to instruct us, either from the solicitor point or directly from the lay client, whether or not to appoint us onto panels, government panels like the Attorney General panels, whether or not to give us silk so that we can take silk and become King's Counsel, or whether or not to give us a judicial appointment. What do we do to tackle that? I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to acknowledge it. The second thing we need to do is we need to look at the tools that already exist, that have been produced in particular from the Bar Council, in order to tackle this issue. I spoke at the last conference about target setting. I spoke about action plans. I talked about positive action. There are guides that my panels that I've sat on the Bar Council have produced, and I implore everybody to look at those. And we've also discussed allocation of work at length and monitoring and analysing that. There are guides in respect of doing it in the context of gender and also in the context of race. Those are online. I implore everybody to look at that. However, I'm conscious, and I have been for some time, that there's only so much the bar can do in isolation. So, for example, we bang on about the allocation of work. We need to analyse that. We need to make sure the clerks are doing things properly, etc., which is great, but there's only so much that they can do. When a solicitor comes in and says, looking for counsel for this kind of case, our clerks put forward a list of options of counsel that are available, and then it's left to the other side. What's happening on that side to make sure that the decision that is made on who's going to be instructed is fair? It's not, it's free of bias. It's actually made on the basis of the skills and the quality of the advocate, not because of the colour of their skin or the gender that they have. Who's going to do that? We can't do it alone. So Natasha, as a profession, we need to come together to talk about it.
Thank you, Natasha. Sarah, I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak to this a little bit as well.
I think just picking up on the points I think both Oliver and Reena made, I think it's every action counts. That was the theme of Race Equality Week this year. I think especially to people coming into the profession, and I suppose that's where I really struggled. Just an example, went to an interview, you're told to give an example of leadership. I'd co-founded a African Caribbean Society at uni. I thought, great, I'm prepared. Hadn't even got to my leadership question, but oh, I can see you've got this on your CV. I just want to check, have you got a chip on your shoulder? And it I just can't tell you how much of an impact. I was second year of uni, applying for training contracts, and just you think, I suppose I've lulled myself into a false sense of security, put my head down over the years, thought this sort of thing doesn't happen now, but obviously these reports have started to come out. I think the one that affected me most was in 2020 when I first saw Stephanie Boyce speak. Lovely to see her last night. But yeah, that just broke my heart that so much is still going on in the profession that's not right. So I think, I can't remember what I was saying, but it's realising that the small things lead to the big things, I think, and acknowledging privilege, etc. So much to say.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah.
Liz, can I just ask you, just in the mental health space, sorry, I'm not saying that that's the only box, but let's use that for the moment. Just what have you seen that drives change successfully and sustainably, if anything?
Gosh, big question.
And you've only got 90 seconds.
90. I think we've been talking about a lot today. I think we need to look at regulatory change and in how we incentivize organizations and people to change their behavior, I think is one thing. I think education and training is absolutely critical, starting right on the pathway into your legal career, but that needs to marry up with what happens when you get into practice. We need to join that up. I was delighted to hear about what I know some people think 1 hour is not enough of ethics training for accountants, but it's something, and that's something that's required in practice. So I think we need to look at that. And I think the big piece is around accountability. We need to hold people to account. There's a lot of talk. There's been a lot of initiatives. They've been going on for decades, but we don't seem to have really shifted the dial. So I think we need to work out what are those accountability measures and how do we hold people to account for what needs to change and actually seeing it change.
Thank you so much, Liz, and delivered on time. Well done. That's super. Just because you've opened that door a little bit, and you said about measurement, the thing that we don't seem to measure is whether people are kind and whether they're decent and whether they are human beings that you'd want to spend time with. I would love, for example, for there to be some sort of measurement that is, what do your colleagues' families say about you? What do they hear about you? What is it that people are saying about you? Because I think we'd be absolutely horrified, most of us, to hear that stuff. You know, that sort of measurement, I know it's not possible, but that sort of measurement, I think, would be... We talk about KPIs, we talk about billing, we talk about clients that you're bringing in, we talk about deals that you do across jurisdictions, but we don't say, have you been kind? Have you been nice to people?
Can I feedback just a little point on that? Because one of the things I was going to raise was around, rights of women. We very much work on the basis that we are implementing trauma-informed legal practice. Our clients are overwhelmingly women who have experienced some form of violence against women and girls. They are highly traumatized. As a result of that, we work with them in ways that are trauma-informed. And there are moves within the profession to improve the way in which we do that. It's very much related internally as well. It impacts the way in which we interact with each other. It impacts the fact that we recognise the roles advisors have in terms of their interactions with clients and each other. And you don't have to be the type of legal provider who is providing direct legal services to very vulnerable people to have for there to be a benefit to working in trauma-informed ways. It also impacts things like, one of the areas we work in is employment law. We would love it if lawyers who are dealing with bullying and harassment complaints were doing that in a trauma-informed way. They should be. And it is one of the ways for us that's really important in terms of ensuring that a lot of it's kindness. That is a big part of what it's about, but it's providing a structure for how do you be kind, essentially.
Olive, thank you. We're going to move on to the next section, and this is where we would like you to, again, interact with Slido. We're a community here. I think we're all trying to help each other. I think we're trying not to compete with each other too much. And so part of that would be knowledge sharing, and part of knowledge sharing is people telling us things that they think have worked and that have helped. So the question we'd like you to begin to answer, and the panel will also speak to it as well, is can you, it says rather aggressively, share examples. I think it's mean, please share examples of effective practice that you've led or seen in the sector. And we're really looking for stuff that has actually worked, which would be great. So if I could pass that down to, I'm going to start with Sarah, and then I'm going to go to Olive. You standing there makes me think that there's something that you're going to say.
There are some questions,
so,
but
excellent.
we can come to them at the end.
Let's do this one, and then we'll come back to you. So I'm going to go to Sarah, and then if I may go to Olive.
Brilliant. So where the council where I'm at now, we are a new legal service. We were one of the, it's not a secret, we were one of the first authorities to fall into challenging financial times. And as a result of that, we built up a new legal service. I can't speak highly enough of our monitoring officer, Sarah Hall. It's embedded in our structure. We've just been encouraged so much with the mentoring, the opportunity. So it's completely changed my life. I'd say that's an amazing example, good practice. Also, as I mentioned, I sit on the board of lawyers and local government. So we have EDI non-exec director. We embed it in everything we do. We try and make our conferences as inclusive as possible. We're always looking for, I'm here for intelligence today, basically, as well. We're always looking at ways that we can improve and make the legal, promote local government law and also make it as inclusive, as accessible as possible. I would also mention at this point, Work Experience Week, if you've got anyone who might be studying out there interested in local authority law, follow us on LinkedIn, and its applications are open to get a bit of experience at a local authority.
Nice plug there.
Yeah,
well
yeah.
done. I think I'm going to go down to Olive.
I think I jumped ahead of myself a little bit because when you were talking about kindness, I thought, I have to get trauma-informed practice in when you're talking about kindness. But I think it is a very effective way of shifting the culture within an organisation, and it's not difficult to do once you understand the benefit of it and what it actually looks like. And part of doing that is providing you, we were talking today about accountability, and accountability is absolutely fundamental, and the regulators are a really important part of that. But also there's something about the way in which you hold people accountable, because if lawyers are not able to learn from the disciplinary proceedings, essentially, or the mistakes that they make, then all you're going to end up with is a group of lawyers who are constantly defensive about change and about new things. So accountability is very important, and obviously really bad practice people need to be properly accountable for that, but also there are ways in which you can hold people accountable that also brings them with you.
Thank you. Natasha, have you seen anything work? One example of something that you've been impressed by?
I wanted to respond with no, like the first person in the poll, but there was two things that I was thinking of. I'm going to focus on one at the moment. 10K Black interns. I think that's been a really good project. However, what I would say is that it's low-hanging fruit. Often when it comes to EDI stuff, people focus on access and trying to increase access. They don't focus on tackling the issues that people have once they're in the profession. And when I look at progression and how that's going, it's not going very well, in particular when it comes to race. So, for example, every year when the KC appointments comes out, the list comes out, we normally look through and scout to see, any black people been taken on, blah, blah, blah. This year, luckily, they also produced the statistics alongside it. And I was like, thank you so much, KC Appointments Commission. 10 black applicants applied, none of them.
Got through.
None of them. I sit here I can't tell you, how disappointed, how shocked, how upset and how angry I am when I'm not seeing any change for those of us who are already in the profession. People love to grab onto, let's bring us in, but I'm always keep banging on. There is no point in bringing us in if we're earning the least, we're not progressing, we're the ones that complain the most about discrimination and harassment being put upon us. It's exhausting. If you just look at the figures from the Race at the Bar report recently in terms of disparity of earnings, which is pretty bad. Let's pick silks for an example. For silks, the median earnings, for white silks declared this time last year, because we're at ATP point, was £453,864. For black silks, it was £253,001. Why am I here? Why should I continue to be in this profession when the ceiling is not glass, it's concrete, and it's not moving? Judicial appointments, black judges, 1% every year, 1%. And the thing is when it comes into recognition, which was the question that was mentioned before in terms of the work that we're doing, like I said, it's those of us who are facing the problems that tend to be doing the most work. We don't get the recognition at the bar. Most of us that are doing that, we're not employed. So when we're doing this stuff, we're doing it for free. When I'm doing this stuff, it's actually at a detriment to my practice, the amount of money that I've lost or that I could have been earning from working, that I've been doing this EDI stuff, and things aren't really changing, and the only thing that we're tackling is low-hanging fruit. I think you can tell. I'm tired. I'm very tired. So, yes, there are some initiatives that I've seen, not enough. And when it comes to what needs to happen, like I said previously when I spoke here, we need teeth. I know that the regulator, the BSB, has tried to change the equality rules. I don't think they did it in the right way, but we need teeth, and we need the Bar Council and the Law Society to come together and also point the fingers at the Judicial Appointments Commission and the Casey Appointments Commission to sort this out.
Natasha, thank you. You've painted a bleak but accurate, I'm sure, picture. So thank you for that. More to be done, and more probably to be done by people that aren't necessarily in this room, and for whom I think, in terms of D&I, the way I think of it is layers, and people have layers to contend with to get to the success bit. And the more layers you have, yes, the more skilled you become, but the more difficult it is, the more exhausted you get. I have a slightly different view in the queer space, which is because I've had queer done to me by various good-meaning people over the decades, and the whole rainbow washing thing has been done, I actually like to reclaim that and have queer people doing it, directing it, and doing some of the work, just because I've seen some of the stuff and I'm like, that's not what's really going on for us. But it's good that we have these views. I'm going to just hand over to you, but just before I do, what we'd really like is on the next bit of the Slido. Do you remember I said at the beginning, we'd really like you to commit to one thing you are going to do. You know, bear in mind how tired Natasha is. Bear in mind what Reena was saying. Bear in mind I'm retired, so I'm no use to anybody anymore. Can't do it all. Can't do it all. I've got to spend time with the dogs. Maybe if you could go to your bit. Thank you,
sure,
sir.
Patrick. Thank you. So while
And
people,
by the way, I thought you were brilliant before.
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
No, I really did. The way you managed to corral all that in was wonderful. Didn't I say that to you, Reena?
Yeah, well, we've got loads of questions here. So while people are answering the question live, I think I'll point out a few. There are a series, as I said. I do think they're quite important, so I'll throw them out there for you. And whichever you think are the most important or salient, feel free to answer. So we've got an observation here. Perhaps firms should be encouraged to match pound for pound what they spend on marketing with what they spend on EDI initiatives, as a suggestion. Someone said the majority of people working in social welfare law and public interest law are often from marginalised backgrounds. How can we support those entering this part of the profession? Someone noted that, or asked the question, are the issues faced by DEI lawyers mirrored in the experiences of DEI service users when trying to access legal services, which is a really important question. Is that reflected in the poorer outcomes experienced by those groups? Some other questions as well. How do we incentivise white, male, able-bodied, straight lawyers to step aside and make space for others? Are there any specific suggestions? Are there restrictive dress codes from law firms, hairstyles, etc.? And that's it, I think, for now. And also, what can government do to better support and work with the sector to improve diversity? So lots of really important, interesting questions.
Can I take one of them at least? So social welfare lawyers trying to get into the industry. I've set up a fund called the Social Welfare Solicitors Qualification Fund. We've raised 1.3 million. We have enough for 121 people to have their solicitors exams, the course and the assessments paid for. We do not have enough people applying. We've managed this year to raise more money than we've spent, so that's ridiculous. So if any of you know any people in that space, please let me. Government, first of all, thank God we've changed the government. I'm not supposed to be, but I literally sat in a room where Mike Freer, were you at that one, Minister of Justice, had a go at lambasting the legal industry for not doing more around the DE&I space. The way he introduced himself was to say, I'm a gay guy, but I don't believe in DE&I, and I hate pronouns, and no one should be forced to use the women's toilet, or whatever it was. And that culture was really unhelpful. Thank God Kemi Badenoch's nowhere close. But that, and reform, but that is a concern. I do have a real concern about government coming from the other side of the thing. I will just do the dress code one as well, because I want to. So I wear nails. I wear them because I like them and because you get 45 minutes of not really being able to do anything in that time. And my nail artist, Sam, she's Vietnamese. She doesn't care about me, so she doesn't want to talk to me, so it's fine. But I do it more because I want people to see that you can be old and senior and relatively successful and be different and give a different vibe. And I have people talk to me about stuff like this. The other thing I did want to say is what I have loved and I think is the change is the use of social media, and particularly LinkedIn, and how people like Liz, Reena and Sarah they put love out there. They put stuff that questions things. And I honestly believe that is changing the conversation, is changing society. By the way, we all want more followers, so please do follow us on LinkedIn. Who wants to answer any of the others? So we've got should we do D&I marketing? Budget should be the same. Should we do, what am I writing? What can we do to get
the... pitch in on one.
Do the straight white men one.
I'm not going to do that one, no, sorry. I'm going to talk about the client experience, because I think organisations that are active in this space often focus on internal initiatives, but they're not thinking about how to take that learning to ensure a more inclusive client experience. And what are we here to do? We're here to serve communities.
We are.
So we need to interrogate that a little bit more. I think more needs to be done there, especially in terms of accessibility, which I think was mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Can I have more things going on to Slido? Can I have one thing from each of us, really quickly, so it's 15 words or fewer, back of a postcard thing. What would you pose as one challenge to leaders in the sector, which I think is what should they be doing, essentially? I'll start. I think we should firebomb all partner dining rooms. I think they're really elitist and horrible. I said that to the managing partner, he wasn't happy. But I hate that we have that elitism in big law things.
Shall I go next? Critically assess the diversity of the teams that are leading diversity initiatives. Think about who is not in the room, not at the table, involve them. We talked about co-production earlier. It's really important to have those people as part of the discussion to evolve policy and organisational change.
Nothing about us without us.
Exactly.
Sarah.
It's interesting.
I'm going to do creeping death, which is going to go down.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know about this big law business, but it's not quite like that. But obviously, our statistics are a little bit better. I just wanted to add, but we've still got a long way to go in local government. I think my call to action is a little bit vague, but hopefully you'll understand what I mean. One difference you can make to someone entering the profession, wondering if it's for them.
Thank you. Liz?
I'm going to be naughty and do two.
Oh.
First, sorry, it's my opportunity. First is my shameless plug for LawCare's Life of the Law study, which you may have seen that we're doing, which is actually addressing a lot of the issues that we're talking about. Our study closes on the 21st of March. You can go to our website, please fill it in, and share it wide with everybody that you know. So that's my shameless plug for Life of the Law. My other thing would be to actually look at yourself. I think all of this starts with me, it starts with you, it starts with what we do every day in our own behaviour. So I would say to a leader, think about how you behave and how you show up at work and what your behaviour says to the other people around you.
Natasha?
I think what I would say is challenge poor behaviours. I was actually going to say close the earnings gap, but I'll pause on that one. I think challenge poor behaviours will affect everything. So not just in terms of interactions that we have as lawyers amongst each other or clients, etc. I think it would help in respect of when it comes to client briefing. Because I have a feeling there may be some times where clients may make decisions on barristers that are not exactly free of bias. And I think there needs to be some challenge there.
Thank you. Olive?
One thing is difficult, but I think it's really interesting to have this conversation in the context of the whole day and thinking about all of the conversations we've had about ethical regulation and behaviour and why that matters to this issue as well, that they are very much interrelated. So regulation and the development of proper regulation that focuses on EDI within the workplace as well is actually really valuable. There has to be teeth to discriminating against your fellow colleagues. And it's very much related to the question about our clients and lawyers. We are all part of the same community. So the discrimination that our clients face is often the same discrimination that a lot of lawyers face as well. Well, in some ways. And we can all make sure that we recognise we are part of the same community. But yeah, the regulators need teeth to deal with it.
Thank you very much. Can you give me your 2 favourite actions that people have said?
Yes,
They could
absolutely.
be random, they don't need to be favourites.
Yeah. One of them is try and convince the higher-ups of the value in terms of innovation and competitiveness. Continuing advocating for genuine social mobility. And create dedicated time for EDI initiatives, not in addition to the day job.
Fab. I think that brings us 1 minute over our time, and I don't want to annoy Gavin any more than I have done in the prep for this. So I think what I'm taking away from this is we were the best-looking panel of the day. I think I've taken that away. I think that's a yes. And no offence, Stephen. And in relation to D&I, it seems to be about naming it. It seems to be about more regulation, more teeth. It seems to be holding people accountable, some training, getting the straight white guys, the poshos, involved a little bit, and everybody doing something. So thank you so much. It'd be really embarrassing, by the way, if you don't clap. Thank you so much for the end of that panel. Thank you.